I'm not leaving without Mommy. The little girl's voice was barely louder than a whisper, but inside the enormous Blackwood mansion, it stopped everything. At 2:17 in the morning, while the last lights in the house were turning off one by one, 5-year-old Lily Carter sat alone on the cold marble staircase, hugging a small blue backpack against her chest. She was wearing the same pink sweater she had worn that afternoon, but now the sleeves covered her tiny hands, and her eyes were swollen from hours of waiting. She was not crying anymore. She was simply waiting for the one person who always came back for her. Her mother. A few hours earlier, Maria Carter had walked out of the mansion with a small suitcase and a broken expression on her face. She had worked inside Blackwood Mansion for 8 years. She cleaned rooms, prepared meals, remembered birthdays, and quietly helped keep the massive home running. But tonight, she was no longer an employee. She had been dismissed without explanation. The official words were simple: a security concern, a violation of trust, a necessary decision. But Lily was too young to understand those words. She only understood one thing. Her mother had been told to leave, and nobody had told her why. The sound of slow footsteps echoed from the upper floor. Adrian Blackwood appeared at the top of the staircase, wearing a black suit that looked untouched by the long night. At 48 years old, Adrian was a man known for making decisions quickly. Business partners waited for his approval. Lawyers followed his instructions. Entire companies changed direction because of a sentence he spoke in a meeting. But tonight, the most powerful man in the house stopped because of a 5-year-old girl sitting on his stairs. "Lily," Adrian said calmly, walking down a few steps, "it's late. You should be sleeping." The little girl looked up at him. She did not move. She did not ask for food. She did not ask for money. She only held the small wooden music box tighter. "Mommy said she would come back," Lily whispered. Adrian looked toward the front entrance. "Your mother has left the property." Lily shook her head slowly. "No." It was such a small word, but it carried a certainty Adrian did not expect. She didn't leave because she wanted to. For the first time that night, Adrian stopped moving. "And how do you know that?" he asked. Lily looked down at the music box in her hands. "Because Mommy takes this with her everywhere." She turned it over carefully. She would never leave it behind. Adrian noticed the scratches on the old wooden box. It was not expensive. It did not belong in a mansion filled with rare paintings and antique furniture. It looked like something a child would keep because it carried a memory, not because it had value. "Your mother was given a fair opportunity to explain herself," Adrian said. But even as he spoke, he noticed something strange. Maria had left her personal bag behind. Her coat was gone. Her shoes were gone. But the music box, something Lily said Maria never left behind, was still here. Adrian's eyes moved back to the little girl. "What did your mother tell you before she left?" Lily was quiet for a moment. Then she answered in the simple way only a child could. She said sometimes people smile when they are hiding something. The words were not dramatic. Lily did not know they would matter. She was only repeating something she remembered. Adrian looked away for a second. He had spent his life reading contracts, watching negotiations, and recognizing when people were hiding information. But he had never expected a 5-year-old child to point out the same thing. "Lily, your mother worked for this family. There are rules." The girl nodded. "I know." She looked at the huge staircase, the tall walls, and the quiet house around her. "But rules are supposed to protect good people too." Adrian said nothing. The sentence was too simple to argue with. The mansion remained silent around them. Then Lily opened the small music box slightly, revealing a tiny hidden space beneath the worn fabric inside. Adrian noticed something that should not have been there. A folded piece of paper. His expression changed for less than a second, but Lily saw it. She always noticed small things. "Mommy said," Lily whispered, "if something happened, I should give this to someone who listens." Adrian stared at the hidden paper. A woman who had just been accused of betrayal had left behind the one thing that could explain everything. And she had trusted her 5-year-old daughter to protect it. For the first time that night, Adrian Blackwood wondered if the person who had been removed from his home was not the person who should have been removed. But before he could reach for the paper, the sound of a phone ringing came from the hallway. It was Victoria Ashford, his fiancée. Adrian looked at the screen. Lily looked at him. And neither of them knew that answering that call would change the story of what happened inside Blackwood Mansion forever. Adrian Blackwood did not answer the phone immediately. For several seconds, he simply stared at the screen while Lily Carter sat quietly on the marble staircase, still holding the small music box in her hands. The name Victoria Ashford appeared on the display. The woman who had been standing beside him at every charity event, every business dinner, and every family gathering. The woman everyone believed would soon become the center of the Blackwood family. "Are you still awake?" Victoria asked when Adrian finally answered. Her voice sounded calm and concerned. "I heard there was an issue with Maria. I wanted to make sure everything was handled." Adrian looked toward Lily. The little girl was watching him carefully, not because she understood the conversation, but because she noticed something adults often missed: the change in his face. "Everything is handled," Adrian replied. "Is it?" Victoria asked softly. "Maria caused a serious problem, Adrian. You cannot let personal feelings interfere with protecting this family." The words sounded reasonable, almost too reasonable. Adrian had heard that tone before. It was the tone people used when they wanted him to stop asking questions. He looked back at the paper hidden inside the music box. "I will speak with you in the morning," he said before ending the call. When the screen went dark, Lily lowered her eyes. "She does not like Mommy," she whispered. Adrian studied her. "Why would you say that?" Lily shrugged slightly. "Because when Mommy cleaned her office, she stopped smiling." It was a simple observation, a child remembering a moment that adults would have forgotten. Adrian walked closer to the staircase. "Lily, your mother was accused of breaking trust." The little girl looked confused. "Mommy always says trust means telling the truth even when nobody is watching." Adrian did not respond. The sentence stayed in the air. A few minutes later, Adrian called Ethan Cole from Human Resources. Ethan answered immediately, as if he had been waiting for the call. "Mr. Blackwood, I assume you are asking about Maria." "I am," Adrian said. "I want the complete file." There was a short pause. "The complete file?" Ethan repeated. "Yes, not the summary. Everything." Ethan quickly explained that Maria had violated a confidentiality agreement and entered a restricted area without permission. He described it as a straightforward employee matter. But Adrian noticed something unusual. Ethan did not ask why Adrian wanted the file. He immediately defended the decision. "Send it over," Adrian said. 10 minutes later, the documents arrived on his secure tablet. Adrian opened them while standing near the staircase. Lily remained nearby, quiet and patient. The first pages looked normal. Employment history, performance reviews, security policies. Then Adrian reached the termination section. His eyes stopped. Maria Carter had worked for the Blackwood family for 8 years. 8 years of perfect reviews. 8 years with no complaints. But the final report included a special clause that Adrian had never seen before. A handwritten note was attached beneath the digital signature. "Immediate removal recommended due to potential family risk." Adrian frowned. "Who added this?" he asked himself quietly. Lily looked up. "That handwriting is not Mommy's." Adrian turned toward her. "How do you know?" "Because Mommy writes grocery lists," Lily said. "Her letters look different." Adrian almost dismissed the comment, but then he looked closer. He had spent years studying signatures on contracts worth millions of dollars. Small details mattered. The note had been added after the approval timestamp. Someone had changed the file after the decision was already recorded. Adrian picked up his phone and called Ethan again. "Who modified Maria Carter's termination record?" Silence. Just for a moment. But it was enough. Adrian noticed. "Mr. Cole?" he said. Ethan finally answered. "I will have to check the system." Adrian looked at Lily. The little girl was still sitting on the stairs where she had waited all night. She had no access to lawyers, no authority, no influence. But she had noticed the first crack in a story everyone else accepted. Adrian looked at the music box again. The hidden paper inside was still waiting. And now he had a reason to open it. But before he could reach for it, his phone received a new message from Ethan. Contained one sentence. Mr. Blackwood, I strongly recommend you do not investigate this matter further tonight. Adrian stared at the message. A warning from the person who claimed there was nothing unusual. For the first time, he wondered if Maria had not broken a rule inside his house. Maybe she had discovered who was breaking them. The message from Ethan Cole remained on Adrian Blackwood's phone screen for several seconds. Mr. Blackwood, I strongly recommend you do not investigate this matter further tonight. It was not a threat. It was not an order. It was something much more interesting. It was fear disguised as advice. Adrian had spent decades around people who chose their words carefully. He knew the difference between confidence and hesitation. Ethan had hesitated. The next morning, Blackwood Mansion looked exactly as it always did. The marble floors were polished. The flowers in the entrance hall were perfectly arranged. The staff moved quietly through the rooms as if nothing unusual had happened. But Adrian noticed something different. People were avoiding the staircase. They were avoiding Lily. The little girl was sitting at the small breakfast table with her blue backpack beside her. She was not asking questions. She was not complaining. She was simply waiting for news about her mother. Adrian walked into the room carrying the folder containing Maria Carter's employment records. Lily, he said, sitting across from her. I need you to answer a few questions. Only what you remember. Nothing more. Lily nodded. Okay. The night your mother left. What happened before she was told to go? Lily thought carefully. She did not rush. She looked at the ceiling for a moment, remembering. Mommy cleaned Mrs. Victoria's office. Adrian noticed the name immediately. Victoria's office? Yes, Lily said. She came out and looked worried. Did your mother say why? Lily shook her head. No. Mommy said grown-up problems are not for children. Adrian almost smiled at the honesty of that answer. Maria had protected her daughter from the situation. She had not filled Lily's head with accusations. She had simply tried to keep her safe. Did you see anyone else? Adrian asked. Lily looked down at the music box. Mr. Ethan was there. Adrian became still. Ethan was there? Lily nodded. He told Mommy she should pack quickly. That detail was not in the official report. Adrian opened the termination file again. The report stated that Maria was informed by Human Resources after a formal review. No mention of Ethan personally delivering the news. No mention of the office visit. No mention of a rushed departure. A small detail. But small details were where people made mistakes. Adrian stood and walked toward the hallway. He called his security director. I need the camera records from yesterday between 8 p.m. and midnight. The security director paused. Sir, those records were marked for routine maintenance. Adrian looked at the screen in his hand. Who authorized that? Another pause. I will check. Adrian ended the call. 2 different people. 2 different delays. 2 different moments where someone wanted him to wait. He returned to the table. Lily was still holding the music box. Can I see that? Adrian asked. She looked at it for a moment before handing it over. Be careful. Mommy says it is old. Adrian examined the wooden box. It was simple. Nothing like the expensive decorations throughout the mansion. But beneath the fabric lining, he felt something unusual. A small raised edge. He gently opened the hidden section and found the folded paper Lily had mentioned. He did not open it yet. Instead, he looked at the outside of the paper. There was a date written in the corner. The date was 6 months earlier. Before Maria was fired. Before anyone claimed she had become a problem. Adrian placed the paper on the table. Lily, did your mother know this was here? The little girl shook her head. I think she knew something was inside, but she said it was not hers to open. Adrian looked at the music box again. That answer changed something. Maria had not hidden information for herself. She had preserved something for someone else. A few minutes later, Victoria entered the room wearing an elegant cream-colored coat. Her expression was calm. "Adrian, I heard you were looking through employee records." She smiled politely. "I hope you are not allowing this situation to become bigger than it needs to be." Adrian watched her carefully. "What situation?" Victoria glanced toward Lily. "A confused child and an employee who made a mistake." Lily lowered her eyes. Adrian noticed. The little girl was not afraid of Victoria. She was watching her, remembering her. "A mistake?" Adrian asked.
Victoria nodded.
"Yes." Maria crossed a line. "Which line?" Adrian asked. For the first time, Victoria paused before answering. "The line between staff and family." The room became quiet. Adrian looked at the woman in front of him. Then he looked at Lily sitting beside the music box. A child who had been treated like she did not belong had just revealed something important. The person who wanted Maria gone was not talking about a rule. She was talking about status. And Adrian knew one thing about power. People rarely panic when someone breaks a rule. They panic when someone discovers the truth behind it. He picked up the hidden paper and finally unfolded it. The first line made his expression change. It was not a complaint. It was not a resignation letter. It was a note addressed to him. "Mr. Blackwood, if you are reading this, it means I was not able to tell you myself." Adrian stopped reading. Across the table, Lily watched his face carefully. Because for the first time since her mother disappeared from the house, the powerful man in front of her looked like someone who had just realized he might have been wrong. "Adrian." Blackwood read the first sentence of Maria Carter's note again. "Mr. Blackwood, if you are reading this, it means I was not able to tell you myself." The words were simple, but they carried a weight that made the entire room feel different. Maria had not written a complaint. She had not written a resignation. She had written a message she never expected to deliver. Adrian continued reading silently. The note explained that Maria had discovered something unusual while cleaning Victoria Ashford's office several months earlier. She did not know the full meaning of what she found, but she knew enough to believe Adrian needed to see it. She had tried to speak with him twice. Both times, she was told Adrian was unavailable. The last time, she was told never to bring up private family matters again. Adrian lowered the paper slowly. He looked across the room at Victoria. Her expression remained calm, almost sympathetic. But Adrian had noticed something important. She was not asking what the note said. She was asking whether he had found it. "What exactly did Maria find?" Adrian asked. Victoria looked surprised. It was a small reaction, less than a second. But Adrian saw it. "I do not know," she replied. "Then why do you look worried?" The room became quiet. Lily sat at the table with her hands around the music box. She did not understand the conversation, but she understood when adults were pretending. Adrian had spent years learning how people protected themselves. He knew silence. He knew hesitation. He knew when someone answered too carefully. "Adrian," Victoria said softly, "you are letting this become emotional. Maria worked here for years." "Yes, but loyalty does not mean someone cannot make a mistake." Adrian folded the note. "I agree." Victoria relaxed slightly. "Good. That is why I want to see the evidence." The change in Victoria's face was immediate. "Evidence?" she repeated. Adrian nodded. "The evidence that proved Maria had to leave." Victoria looked toward the hallway. "The Human Resources Department handled that. Then they should have no problem showing me everything." Adrian turned away and called Ethan Cole. The phone rang twice before Ethan answered. "Mr. Blackwood, I need access to the security archive from the night Maria left." There was a pause. "Sir, those recordings were unavailable due to system maintenance." Adrian looked toward the security panel near the entrance. "Who scheduled the maintenance?" Another pause. "I will need to check." Adrian ended the call. The answer was the same pattern again. Nobody knew anything immediately, but everyone knew enough to delay him. Adrian walked toward the security room himself. Lily followed a few steps behind, carrying her backpack. He stopped and looked back. "Lily, you should stay with the staff." The little girl shook her head. "I want to know if Mommy was telling the truth." Adrian did not argue. He simply continued walking. Inside the security room, the monitors showed hundreds of camera feeds throughout the mansion. The security director quickly arrived and began explaining the problem. The main hallway footage was corrupted last night. Adrian looked at him. "Corrupted?" "Yes, sir." "Only the hallway?" The man hesitated. "And the east office corridor." Adrian glanced at Lily. She was looking at the screen. Then she pointed quietly. "That camera." Everyone looked at her. "What about it?" Adrian asked. Lily pointed at a small camera angle near the staircase. "Mommy always cleaned that corner because it had dust." The security director looked confused. "That camera does not cover the office." Lily shook her head. "No." "But Mommy said it sees the door." Adrian stepped closer to the monitor. The camera was old, almost forgotten, but it was still active. The security director checked the system. A few seconds later, his expression changed. "There is a recording." Adrian said nothing. The file loaded slowly. The timestamp appeared. 11:43 p.m. The night Maria was removed from the house. The footage showed Maria walking through the hallway with a folder in her hands. She looked concerned but calm. Then Ethan appeared. He was not carrying a termination document. He was carrying a small envelope. Adrian watched closely. Maria stopped. Ethan handed her the envelope. She opened it. Her expression changed. Then she looked toward Victoria's office. The footage did not show what was inside the envelope. It did not show the full conversation. But it showed something that the official report never mentioned. Maria did not leave because she was caught doing something wrong. She left because someone came to her first. Adrian leaned closer to the screen. Lily whispered, "That is when Mommy got scared." Adrian looked at her. "You knew?" Lily nodded. "She tried not to show me." For a moment, Adrian said nothing. The most powerful man in the mansion was watching a 5-year-old child explain a truth that his entire system had missed. Then the security director spoke quietly. "Sir, there is something else." He enlarged the final seconds of the recording. Before leaving, Maria placed something on the small table near the hallway, a folded piece of paper. Then Ethan walked back and picked it up. Adrian's eyes narrowed. The note he had just read had survived. But another message had not. Someone had taken it before Maria ever had a chance to give it to him. And now Adrian knew the question was no longer whether Maria had hidden something. The real question was who had been hiding something from him. Adrian Blackwood watched the security footage one more time. He watched Maria Carter walk through the hallway. He watched Ethan Cole approach her with an envelope. He watched Maria's expression change before she was escorted away from the home where she had worked for 8 years. But the one thing that stayed in Adrian's mind was the moment after she left. The small folded paper sitting on the table. The paper that disappeared before Maria could ever explain herself. "Who took it?" Adrian asked quietly. The security director looked uncomfortable. "Sir, the footage only shows Ethan picking it up." Adrian turned toward him. "Only," the man corrected himself quickly. "The footage does not show what happened after that." Adrian understood. Missing information, broken records, convenient gaps. The pattern was becoming impossible to ignore. He returned to his office with the original note from Maria, the recovered footage, and the small music box Lily carried everywhere. The room was quiet except for the sound of paper moving across the desk. Lily sat in a chair near the window, drawing on a small piece of paper. She was not trying to listen to adult conversations. She was simply waiting. Adrian noticed that. She was not behaving like someone trying to manipulate a situation. She was behaving like a child who wanted her mother to come home. "Lily," Adrian said, "I need to ask you something important." She looked up. "Okay. Did your mother ever talk about this house being unsafe?" Lily thought for a moment. "No." Adrian waited. "She said the house was beautiful." Lily looked down at her drawing. "But she said beautiful places can still have hidden rooms." Adrian looked at the music box. Another small detail. Another sentence that sounded ordinary until it connected to something larger. Did she tell you about the hidden room? Adrian asked. Lily shook her head.
No.
Mommy did not tell me secrets. She only told me to remember things. That answer stayed with him. Maria had not used her daughter as a messenger. She had protected her. The next morning, Adrian called a private meeting with Ethan Cole and Victoria Ashford. He did not tell them what he had found. He wanted to see what they knew without preparation. Ethan arrived first carrying a folder. Victoria followed moments later, calm and composed. I hope this is not about reopening old problems, Victoria said. Adrian placed the termination file on the table. I have questions. Ethan opened his folder immediately. The situation with Maria was documented. Adrian looked at him. Interesting. You brought the answer before I asked the question. Ethan stopped. Just briefly. But Adrian noticed. Where is the original security report? Adrian asked. Ethan replied, the final report is the official record. That was not my question. The room became quiet. Victoria stepped forward. Adrian, perhaps you are overthinking this because Lily is involved. Adrian looked at her. You think I am asking questions because of a child? Victoria smiled slightly. I think children can make situations feel more emotional than they are. Adrian leaned back in his chair. Or perhaps they make adults notice things they ignored. Nobody answered. Adrian opened a new document on his tablet. The camera system shows Maria was approached before her termination was finalized. Ethan looked surprised. That cannot be correct. Adrian looked up. Why? Ethan hesitated. Because the process was already completed. Adrian studied his reaction. There it was again. A small mistake. A sentence spoken too quickly. Someone who knew more than he should. Completed when? Adrian asked. Ethan looked at Victoria. It lasted only a moment. But Adrian saw it. A silent exchange. A request for permission. Later that afternoon, Adrian visited the archive room beneath the mansion. The room was filled with old family records, legal documents, and forgotten boxes from years of business history. The code B17 opened a small storage cabinet. Inside was not money, not jewelry, not anything valuable in the way most people would expect. It was a collection of old documents connected to Blackwood Holdings. At the bottom of the cabinet was a sealed envelope with Maria Carter's name written on it. Adrian opened it carefully. Inside was a printed copy of a contract amendment. A contract he had never seen. A contract dated 3 days before Maria was fired. His eyes moved across the page. The document changed voting rights inside the company. It gave someone else more control over decisions that belonged to him. Adrian looked at the signature line. His name was there, but something felt wrong. The signature looked almost perfect. Almost. Then he remembered Lily's words. That is not Mommy's handwriting. Small details. That was what children noticed. Things adults ignored because they were too focused on the bigger picture. Adrian closed the folder slowly. For the first time, he understood what Maria had been trying to show him. She was not protecting herself from losing a job. She was protecting him from losing control of everything he built. And somewhere inside Blackwood Mansion, the person who wanted Maria gone had also been preparing to take something much bigger. The question was no longer whether Maria was innocent. The question was how long the people around Adrian had been planning to make him disappear from his own life. Adrian Blackwood stood alone. In the archive room beneath the mansion, holding the contract amendment that could have changed the future of Blackwood Holdings without him ever knowing. The room was silent, but his mind was moving faster than it had in years. A document.
A signature.
A decision that appeared to belong to him. Yet he had never seen it. The strangest part was not the contract itself. The strangest part was how carefully everything had been arranged to make him believe nothing was wrong. Adrian returned to his office with the folder in his hand. He placed the contract beside Maria Carter's note and the recovered security footage. 3 separate pieces. 3 separate moments. But they all pointed in the same direction. Someone had created a story where Maria was the problem. Someone had created a story where Adrian was protected. And someone had made sure nobody looked deeper. The next morning, Adrian called his personal attorney, Daniel Reeves. Unlike the others, Daniel did not immediately explain. He listened first. I need a complete review of every ownership document changed in the last year, Adrian said. Not the summaries. Not the versions prepared for meetings. The original files. Daniel paused. Adrian, are you concerned someone altered company records? I am concerned someone expected me not to notice. That afternoon, Adrian returned to the kitchen area of the mansion. It was a place he rarely visited. For years, he had moved through the main rooms, offices, and meeting spaces, but the working areas of his own home had always been invisible to him. That was where Maria had spent most of her time. That was where Lily had waited for her mother after school. Lily was sitting at the table again, drawing. This time, Adrian noticed what she was drawing. Not the mansion. Not her mother. The staircase. Why the stairs? Adrian asked. Lily looked at the paper. Because Mommy always sat there with me when I was sad. Adrian looked toward the staircase visible through the doorway. The same staircase where Lily had waited all night. The place where she had refused to leave. Did your mother ever talk about leaving this house? Adrian asked. Lily shook her head.
No.
She said this was the place where she worked hard. She paused. She said Mr. Blackwood was not always around, but he tried to be fair. Adrian looked away. That sentence hurt more than he expected. Maria had not described him as a cruel man. She had not taught Lily to hate him. Even after everything, she had protected his image in front of her child. Later that day, Adrian met with the security team and requested a full review of access records. The results revealed something unexpected. The person who accessed the archive room before Maria's termination was not Maria. It was Ethan Cole. But Ethan had reported that Maria entered the restricted area alone. Another inconsistency. Another piece of a story falling apart. Adrian then checked the contract amendment again. The signature appeared almost identical to his own. Almost. The legal team confirmed what he suspected. The document had been prepared using a copied signature image from an older approval form. It was not a valid signature. It was an imitation designed to look official. Adrian placed the document down slowly. This was no longer a misunderstanding between an employer and an employee. This was a system built on false information. That evening, Victoria came to Adrian's office. She did not look angry. She looked concerned. Adrian, I heard you are reviewing old company documents. Yes. Why? She asked. Because I found documents with my name on them that I never approved. Victoria remained quiet for a moment. Perhaps someone made an administrative mistake. Adrian watched her carefully. A mistake that benefits you? The room became still. Victoria took a breath. I think you are allowing Maria and her daughter to influence your judgment. Adrian looked toward the window. Outside, Lily was walking with one of the house staff members, carrying her small blue backpack. Maria did not influence my judgment, he said. She gave me a reason to use it. Victoria's expression changed slightly. She realized something important. Adrian was no longer defending a question. He was investigating an answer. You should be careful, Adrian, Victoria said softly. Sometimes people who appear innocent are not. Adrian turned back toward her. I agree. A small silence followed. That is why I am looking at everyone. After Victoria left, Adrian opened Maria's note again. He read the final lines he had not fully understood before. The person who knows the truth may not be the person you expect. Please check the records before you trust anyone. Adrian looked at the words for a long time. Maria had not asked him for revenge. She had not asked him to punish anyone. She had asked him to look. And now Adrian Blackwood, a man who had spent his entire life believing he saw everything clearly, finally understood the most dangerous place to hide a secret was not outside his home. It was inside the people he trusted. The next step was clear. He needed to stop reacting. He needed to find every person involved before they realized he was no longer protecting the old story. Adrian Blackwood stopped defending his house and started studying it. For the first time in years, he looked at Blackwood Mansion not as the place where he lived, but as a place where information moved quietly between people. Every employee had access levels. Every document had a history. Every decision left a record somewhere. And now Adrian wanted to know who had been controlling the story before he ever realized there was a story. The next morning, Adrian arrived at his office earlier than usual. He wore the same black suit he always wore, but something about him had changed. He was no longer the man waiting for explanations. He was the man collecting them. He called Daniel Reeves, his personal attorney, and gave him one instruction. Do not contact anyone connected to the Blackwood family yet. I want the truth before anyone has time to prepare a version of it. Daniel understood immediately. Adrian was not looking for an argument. He was building a case. Meanwhile, inside the mansion, Adrian acted as if nothing had changed. He greeted Victoria normally. He attended meetings normally. He even allowed Ethan Cole to believe that the contract issue had only raised a small question. But every conversation became a test. Every answer became evidence. Ethan arrived that afternoon with a revised employee report. I reviewed the records again, Ethan said. There appears to have been a documentation error. Adrian looked at the report without touching it. An error that removed Maria from the house? Ethan nodded carefully. Yes, unfortunately, mistakes happen. Adrian looked up. Mistakes usually happen once. Ethan became quiet. Adrian continued. This happened in the employee file, the camera records, the contract paperwork, the access logs. That is not a mistake. That is a pattern. Ethan tried to remain calm. Mr. Blackwood, I think you may be assuming the worst. Adrian leaned back in his chair.
No.
I am assuming nothing. That is why I am checking everything. Later that day, Adrian reviewed the access records from the mansion archive. The information revealed another important detail. Ethan had not acted alone. Someone had approved his access to restricted files. The approval came from an account connected to Victoria's private assistant. Adrian did not react immediately. He simply wrote down the information. The old Adrian would have confronted them. The new Adrian waited, because people revealed more when they believed they were safe. That evening, Adrian found Lily sitting near the library window with her small blue backpack beside her. She was looking at the rain outside. Are you waiting for your mother? Adrian asked. Lily nodded. Yes. What if she cannot come back today? Lily looked at him. She did not cry. She did not become angry. She simply asked, Are you trying to find out what happened? Adrian paused. The question surprised him. Why do you ask that? Lily touched the music box gently. Because Mommy said people who want to know the truth ask questions. People who want to hide things tell you what to think. Adrian looked at her for a long moment. A 5-year-old child was not solving the mystery. She was not finding documents or reading contracts. She was simply repeating a lesson her mother had taught her. But that lesson had become the reason Adrian was still searching. I am trying to find out what happened, Adrian said. Lily nodded. Then Mommy will be happy. That sentence stayed with him. Not because it made him feel better, because it reminded him of what Maria had actually been doing. She had not been trying to protect herself. She had been trying to make sure the truth survived. That night, Adrian received a message from Daniel Reeves. The message contained a scanned document from an internal company archive. It was an email between Ethan and Victoria's legal team. The subject line was simple. After Maria Carter's removal. Adrian opened it. The first sentence made him stop. Once Maria is gone, the remaining documents can be processed without interference. Adrian read the sentence again. Maria was not removed because she was a problem. She was removed because she was in the way. But there was more. The email mentioned a board meeting scheduled for the following week. A meeting where a new voting agreement would be presented. An agreement that would reduce Adrian's control over decisions inside his own company. Adrian closed his eyes for a moment. The betrayal was no longer hidden behind paperwork. It had a timeline. It had names. It had a purpose. He looked across the room at the city lights outside his window. For years, Adrian believed power meant nobody could corner him. Now he understood something different. Power without awareness was just an illusion. The next step was not to expose them. Not yet. He needed one final piece. He needed proof strong enough that nobody could rewrite the truth afterward. And this time, he would make sure the people who built the trap had to stand inside it themselves. The following morning, Blackwood Mansion looked more peaceful than ever. The flowers in the entrance hall were freshly arranged. The marble floors reflected the morning light. The staff moved quietly, carrying out their usual responsibilities. To anyone watching from outside, it was another normal day inside one of the most powerful homes in the city. But Adrian Blackwood knew better. Behind the calm appearance was a carefully built illusion. For years, people had protected that illusion because they believed Adrian would never question the people closest to him. They were wrong. Adrian sat at the head of the family conference room, the same room where important decisions had been made for decades. Around the table sat Victoria Ashford, Ethan Cole, members of the legal team, and several senior company advisors. Victoria arrived with complete confidence. She believed this meeting was about finalizing the new voting agreement. She believed Adrian was still unaware. "I appreciate everyone being here," Adrian said. His voice was calm. "Today we are going to discuss a serious matter involving trust, records, and responsibility." Victoria smiled slightly. "Of course, Adrian. We all want what is best for the family." Adrian looked at the screen behind him. "Good. Then everyone will appreciate seeing the full information." The first image appeared. A security recording from the night Maria Carter was removed from the mansion. The room became quiet. The footage showed Maria walking through the hallway. It showed Ethan approaching her before the official termination time. It showed an envelope being handed to her. Victoria looked toward Ethan. It was a small movement, but Adrian saw it. The second image appeared. The employee records, the altered termination report, the added notes, the changed timeline. Then the third image appeared. The contract amendment, the document that would have changed company voting rights. "This document was presented as approved by me," Adrian said. "But the signature was copied from a previous file." The legal team examined the screen carefully. One of the attorneys adjusted his glasses. "That signature does appear inconsistent with the approval process." Victoria remained silent. Adrian continued. "Maria Carter was removed because she discovered these documents." Ethan immediately responded. "That is not true. Maria misunderstood what she saw." Adrian turned toward him. "Then explain why she was removed before anyone investigated what she found." Ethan opened his mouth, but no answer came. For the first time, the room saw him without his prepared explanation. Adrian placed Maria's note on the table. "She tried to tell me." He tapped the paper gently. "She did not ask for money. She did not ask for revenge. She asked someone to look at the records." The room remained silent. Victoria finally spoke. "Adrian, you are letting one employee's story influence your judgment." Adrian looked at her.
No.
"I am letting evidence influence my judgment." Those words changed the atmosphere completely. Victoria had spent years controlling conversations by making everything about reputation, appearances, and social expectations. But evidence did not care about appearances. Adrian then opened the final file, the email between Victoria and Ethan, the one that mentioned Maria's removal, the one that connected her disappearance from the mansion to the timing of the board agreement. The room became completely still. Ethan looked down. Victoria's expression changed for the first time. Not anger, not fear, realization. She understood that the story she created was no longer hers to control. "Adrian," she said quietly, "you cannot destroy everything we built because of a misunderstanding." Adrian looked at her. "You are right about one thing." He paused. "I cannot destroy what we built." He looked around the room. but I can stop protecting what was built on lies. The legal team immediately began reviewing the documents. The board advisors requested copies of every record. The process that had been hidden behind private conversations was now being examined openly. Adrian did not celebrate. He did not raise his voice. He simply watched the system he created finally begin to correct itself. Later that afternoon, Adrian walked back to the staircase where Lily had waited all night. She was sitting there again, but this time she was not alone. Her mother, Maria, was beside her. Maria stood when Adrian approached. "Mr. Blackwood, I never wanted trouble for your family." Adrian shook his head. "Maria, the trouble was already there. You were just the person who noticed it." Lily looked between them. "Does Mommy get to stay?" Adrian looked at the little girl who had refused to leave when everyone else told her to. "Your mother was never the person who needed to leave." Lily held the music box closer. For the first time in days, she smiled. But Adrian knew the work was not finished. Exposing the truth was only the beginning. The next decision would show whether he had truly changed. Because fixing what happened to Maria was not about bringing one person back. It was about making sure nobody else in his house would ever be erased so easily again. For the first time in many years, Blackwood Mansion felt different. Not because the walls had changed. Not because the rooms were different. The mansion still stood exactly as it always had, with its polished floors, tall windows, and quiet halls. But something inside the house had changed. The silence was no longer created by fear. It was replaced by something Adrian Blackwood had almost forgotten: trust. A few days after the truth was revealed, Adrian called a meeting with every employee who worked inside the mansion. It was not held in a private office. It was not hidden behind closed doors. It was held in the main hall, where everyone could hear and everyone could see. Maria Carter stood near the front of the room. She looked uncomfortable being the center of attention. She had never wanted recognition. She had only wanted to be treated fairly. Lily stood beside her, holding her small blue backpack. Adrian walked to the front of the room and looked at everyone. "Before anything else happens, there is something that needs to be corrected," he said. The room became quiet. Maria Carter was removed from this home based on false information. The records were manipulated. The process was abused. And I allowed myself to believe a story without asking the right questions. The words surprised everyone. Adrian Blackwood was not a man who often admitted mistakes. But this time he did not protect his pride. He protected the truth. Maria looked down. "Mr. Blackwood, you do not have to do this." Adrian shook his head. "Yes, I do." He looked at the employees around him. Because when someone is treated unfairly and nobody speaks, the silence becomes part of the problem. The room remained still. Everyone understood what he meant. This was no longer only about Maria. It was about every person who had ever stayed quiet because they believed their voice did not matter. Adrian announced that Maria would return to Blackwood Mansion, but not as someone who had to prove her worth again. He offered her a new position overseeing family operations and employee support, a role built around the experience she had gained over 8 years, the trust she had earned, and the knowledge of how the household truly worked. Maria hesitated. "I do not want a title because people feel sorry for me." Adrian nodded. "Neither do I. That is why this is not an apology position. It is a position you earned before anyone noticed." For the first time, Maria smiled. Not because of the job, because someone finally saw the truth. Later that afternoon, Adrian found Lily sitting on the staircase where she had waited through the night. The same staircase. The same place where everything had started. But this time, she was not sitting alone. "Are you waiting for someone again?" Adrian asked. Lily smiled.
No.
"Mommy is inside." Adrian sat down on the step beside her. Not above her. Not looking down. Beside her. "You were very brave that night," he said. Lily shook her head. "I was just waiting." Adrian looked at her. "Sometimes waiting for the truth is the bravest thing someone can do." Lily looked at the music box in her hands. "Mommy said good people listen." Adrian smiled slightly. "Your mother was right." He looked around the mansion. a place filled with expensive things, powerful people, and years of history. But the most important lesson he learned did not come from a contract or a business meeting. It came from a 5-year-old girl sitting on a staircase because she refused to leave the person she loved behind. Weeks later, the investigation into the false documents continued. Victoria Ashford and Ethan Cole were removed from their positions while the legal review was completed. The evidence spoke for itself. The altered records, the unauthorized contract changes, the misuse of internal systems. There was no need for revenge. There was accountability. The truth was enough. Adrian also changed the way Blackwood Holdings handled employee concerns. New reporting systems were created. Decisions involving employees could no longer be hidden behind private approvals. People who worked inside the company and the mansion were given a clearer way to speak when something was wrong. Because Adrian finally understood something important. Powerful person is not someone who never makes mistakes. A powerful person is someone who has enough courage to correct them. Months later, Lily walked through the mansion carrying her blue backpack. She passed the staircase where she had once waited in fear. She stopped for a moment and looked at it. Then she continued walking toward the kitchen, where her mother was waiting with a warm smile. The staircase was no longer a place where a little girl had to fight to stay. It was simply a staircase, a normal part of a home. And for Lily Carter, that was the greatest change of all. Because she no longer needed to prove that she belonged. She finally knew she did.